Look at any crowd anywhere on Earth and you will notice something remarkable. One species. Same bones, same blood, same fundamental brain, same ancient family tree, yet skin ranging from very deep brown to very pale pink. For thousands of years, humans tried to explain that difference in the worst ways imaginable. They turned it into myths, then tribes, then empires, then race. They treated skin color as evidence that humans were divided into fundamentally different kinds of people. But biology tells an entirely different story. Skin color was never proof of separation. It was never really about the labels people use today. It was about a problem every human body had to solve, a problem coming directly from the sky. The strange reality is that the very same thing that kept early humans alive was also trying to damage them. Over thousands of generations, the human body had to find a careful balance. Block too much of it and you die one way. Let too much in and you die another. So why did humans come to look so different? The answer begins long before nations, borders, or race ever existed. It begins in Africa, with a small, exposed, sweating creature standing under a relentless equatorial sun. For most mammals, skin is not the first line of defense against sunlight. Fur is. Fur provides shade and blocks solar radiation before it ever touches the skin beneath. But our ancestors did something that looks almost dangerous in hindsight. They lost most of theirs. The leading explanation centers on heat. A fur-covered animal overheats quickly when running in open sunlight. A mostly hairless animal that can sweat has a powerful advantage. It can keep moving. It can walk for hours, follow prey across hot open terrain, while other predators are forced to stop and cool down. Sweating works most efficiently on bare skin. So early humans traded fur for a cooling system. But that trade created a new problem. Once the fur was gone, the sky had direct access to the body beneath. Near the equator, sunlight is not gentle. It carries ultraviolet radiation powerful enough to burn skin, damage DNA, and break down critical molecules inside the body. One of those molecules is folate, a B vitamin the body needs to produce new cells, repair DNA, and sustain healthy reproduction. When too much UV degrades folate, reproduction becomes significantly harder. And in evolutionary terms, reproduction is not a minor detail. It is the entire test. A body can be strong and well adapted in every other way, but if it cannot successfully leave descendants, evolution does not preserve that design. So as early humans lived under intense tropical sunlight, natural selection favored bodies that could protect their folate stores. That protection came from melanin. Melanin is the pigment responsible for skin color, but it is far more than color. It is a biological shield, absorbing and scattering ultraviolet radiation before it can penetrate deeply enough to cause serious harm. The more melanin the skin produces, the more protected the body is under strong sunlight. This is why populations whose ancestors lived near the equator tend to have darker skin, not because they are a different kind of human, but because their ancestors lived under more intense UV. Dark skin was not cosmetic, it was survival technology. The original sunscreen, developed by evolution long before anyone thought to bottle it. But then humans moved. Slowly, over tens of thousands of years, groups of Homo sapiens spread outward from Africa. They crossed deserts, followed coastlines, reached cold plains, overcast islands, and northern latitudes with weak winter sunlight. As some groups moved farther from the equator, the problem changed. The danger was no longer too much sunlight, it was too little, specifically, too little UVB radiation. UVB is the portion of sunlight the body uses to produce vitamin D, which is essential for absorbing calcium, building strong bones, supporting immune function, and sustaining normal biological processes throughout life. Without sufficient vitamin D, children can develop rickets, pregnancy becomes riskier, and bones weaken over time. So in lower UV environments, human skin faced the opposite challenge. Dark skin was an excellent adaptation under tropical sunlight. But in regions where the sun was weak for much of the year, too much melanin could block the limited UVB available. In those environments, natural selection began favoring lighter skin. Less melanin allowed more UVB to enter. More UVB meant more vitamin D, stronger bones, and better survival. This is the point where most people get the explanation wrong. Lighter skin did not evolve because cold places are cold. Cold does not bleach skin. Sunlight does, or rather, the absence of it. The real determining factor is not temperature, it is ultraviolet radiation. That is why skin color follows patterns of sunlight far more closely than patterns of heat. But even this is not a perfectly clean story, because humans, migration, and diet are all messy. Some Arctic populations did not develop extremely pale skin, despite living at very high latitudes. Many of these groups traditionally consumed large amounts of fish and marine mammals, foods rich in vitamin D. If diet reliably supplies vitamin D, the skin does not need to maximize UV absorption. Diet can shift the evolutionary pressure on skin color entirely. There are patterns, but no neat boxes. And this is precisely where the idea of biological race falls apart. Skin color does not divide humans into clean, separate categories. It changes gradually across geography. There is no sharp line where one kind of human ends and another begins. Only populations whose ancestors adapted to different levels of sunlight, mixed with others, moved again and adapted again. If you had walked northward from Central Africa thousands of years ago, you would not have crossed a border where humans suddenly transformed. You would have seen slow, continuous shifts shaped by sunlight, diet, migration, and chance. Human variation is real, but the rigid categories built around it are mostly cultural constructions. Skin color became one of the most visible human differences, so societies attached meaning to it, then hierarchy, then violence. But evolution never instructed any of that. Evolution was solving a chemistry problem: how to block enough sunlight to protect folate, while allowing enough through to produce vitamin D. Human skin color is that answer. A moving balance between protection and production, between blocking the sun and making use of it. The strangest detail may be this: that balance evolved more than once. Lighter skin in Europe and lighter skin in parts of East Asia did not arise through exactly the same genetic changes. Evolution found similar solutions using different biological tools, which means there was no single moment when humans became pale, and no single moment when humans became dark. Those are modern social categories placed over a much older, slower, and far more complicated biological process. The earliest Homo sapiens were almost certainly darker skinned than many people alive today, because our species originated in Africa under strong UV radiation. But that needs saying carefully. They were ancient humans with skin adapted to powerful sunlight, not representatives of any modern social identity. The biology came first. The categories came much, much later. Think of the sun as a problem with two dangers. Too much UV penetration degrades folate and damages DNA. Too little UV, and the body cannot make enough vitamin D. Melanin is the dial between those two risks. Turn it up where UV is intense. Turn it down where UV is limited, not because any one skin color is superior, but because different environments place different demands on the body. No shade is the original perfect version. Every tone is a solution. Dark skin is not primitive. Light skin is not advanced. Every color is a record of survival. Then the modern world rearranged all the old rules. Today, people cross the planet in hours. Someone whose ancestors adapted to weak northern light can live under a fierce tropical sun. Someone shaped by generations of intense equatorial UV can spend their life in a cloudy northern city. Your skin still carries the story of ancient sunlight, but your life may be playing out under a completely different sky. Skin color feels permanent, like identity, like family, like something carried from birth. And it is all of those things, but it is also evidence of movement. Your skin is the shadow of migrations your ancestors made across landscapes whose names are long forgotten. The trace of deserts crossed, coastlines followed, winters endured, and sunlight absorbed by people whose names no one remembers, people who were simply trying to survive long enough to have children. And across generation after generation, the sun wrote itself quietly into their skin. So why did humans become different colors? Because we left one place and learned to survive in many. Because the same star that made life possible also threatened the bodies it sustained. Because evolution had to solve two opposing problems simultaneously: protect the body from sunlight and let sunlight in. Skin color is that solution, not a ranking, not a border, not evidence that humans are separate from one another. It is evidence that we are one species, flexible enough to survive almost anywhere. A species that began under the African sun, spread across the entire planet, and carried the memory of those ancient skies written on its skin. Every shade is a survival story. Every color is a map. And every person alive today is carrying a fragment of ancient sunlight on their body. Evidence of a much older story than most of us ever stop to consider.